I'm a criminologist by training, so I often see the world through a criminological lens. I apply theories of crime to non-crime situations and find that they're far more universal than a lot of people would imagine. I've been giving a lot of thought to the pandemic since it began, and of course, I began to apply theories from my former field. One that I particularly like is routine activities theory. First developed by Lawrence Cohen and Marcus Felsen in 1979, the theory explains predatory violations as the intersection of three essential elements. First, you need a motivated offender, which is sometimes called a likely offender. Second, you need a suitable target. And third, you need an absence of capable guardians. Cohen and Felsen argued that the routine activities that fill our days and also the physical structure of our environments puts us at risk of victimization. The team noted that work is one of the most important routine activities because it draws people from diverse backgrounds to a common location. School is another important routine activity, and modern society could add things like dining out and attending social events to the list of activities that routinely draw us from our cozy little homes. Spending less time in public means we are less likely to be victims of violent crimes committed by strangers, but unfortunately it means also that crimes such as domestic violence could increase. So let us consider two examples of routine activities applied to crimes. In the first one, someone wants to harass a woman. In this case, we'll say Brutus and Olive Oyl from Popeye. So Brutus wants to harass Olive Oyl. And the harassment would take place, but for the appearance of spinach-fueled Popeye on the scene. In this case, Popeye serves as the capable guardian against offending, and his presence negates the motivated offender. That would be Brutus. Due to Popeye's presence, the woman is not victimized. The second example is of a motivated thief who wishes to steal jewelry. When the thief encounters a diamond ring, a theft will occur. But if the diamond ring is enclosed in a glass case, the thief cannot steal the ring without first gaining access to it by breaking the glass, defeating the lock, or otherwise getting into that case. This is called hardening the target, and is a way that a lot of stores reduce theft of small valuable items. Glass cases makes the target less suitable. The thief still remains motivated, but will seek out another easier-to-access target, much like the thief who tests car doors and steals the first one he finds unlocked. The door locking makes each particular car less suitable, but the thief keeps checking doors in hopes of getting lucky. Combined, these examples show how capable guardians can affect either of the other two elements in the equation. The first example shows a capable guardian reducing an offender's level of motivation. The second example shows a non-human guardian that makes a specific target a little less desirable instead of trying to reduce the offender's motivation. But in both cases, the capable guardians affect one of the other two elements. Now, Cohen and Felsen were talking about crime, but it's easy to see how their theory could be applied, at least in part, to virus infections. For our purpose, the virus itself is the offender. It is always motivated, because a virus's purpose is to achieve what the medical field calls viral replication, which is basically reproducing itself through infecting target hosts and creating copies of itself. That's how we get sick. Now, this particular virus, coronavirus, is a bit unique, likely having jumped from animals to humans in what's called a wet market in China, and those are markets where live animals are sold. This particular virus has little spikes on it, which it then uses to bind to cells in order to infect its victims. The process through which the virus infects someone makes it much easier to spread from person to person than your typical flu would be. As an offender, coronavirus is a formidable opponent. The suitable target, of course, is the human host. That would be you, me, and other people. The virus can survive on a non-human surface for a few hours up to a few days, depending on the surface, but it needs to get into a body in order to actually engage in its attack. Otherwise, it'll die, and that particular offender is removed from the equation. While it is essential to think of the virus as an offender for this theory, we should not attach any particular intelligence to it. Coronavirus, for example, doesn't actually seek out a host victim or plan a course of action to get to its victims. Instead, it encounters a victim and simply does what viruses do: attack and replicate. In a perverse twist, it's sometimes the victim, him or herself, who facilitates the offender's attack by touching his or her face after getting the virus on his or her hands. The third element, the absence of capable guardians, is essential. The idea of little policemen arresting viruses, or at least chasing them away, is an entertaining mental image, but it isn't reality. But we can still have capable guardians in our virus scenario. If I am immune to any virus through vaccination or prior exposure, such as with chickenpox, it can't infect me. It can try to infect me, but it can't be infected. The vaccination or antibodies flowing through my system could actually be considered a capable guardian. Of course, these possible approaches do not yet exist for coronavirus 19. If I stay at home, away from those who could share the virus with me, my physical home is the capable guardian, much like placing items for sale in glass cases protects them from being stolen at department stores. But just as department stores have found, locking everything up has the consequences of its own, as customers engage in fewer impulse buys and are sometimes too shy to ask staffers to extract the items for them to examine or to look up the prices. Stores lock items up to save money, but lose some due to actually locking them up. In our virus scenario, we can lock ourselves up for our health, but our health may actually suffer as we can get less exercise, get less sunshine, eat differently, and our mental health may deteriorate. So staying at home can be effective, but it can also be counterproductive when done long term. If I am wearing effective protective gear when around the virus, the gear becomes a capable guardian. In fact, that's why respirator face masks, those N95 filters we keep hearing about being in such short supply, and other things like plastic face guards that cover the eyes, and even protective bodysuits and other clothing were designed. They were designed to protect individuals in a situation in which they are surrounded by pathogens from being infected by those very pathogens. But we can't all run around in toxic hazmat cleanup gear in order to protect ourselves. For one thing, there just isn't enough of it, and those who are essential in the front lines, especially medical personnel and first responders, need what little remains of that equipment. Besides, they know how to wear that protective gear so it's effective. And since people can be contagious without showing symptoms, we would have to wear the gear around anyone and everyone in order to maximize our safety, which would become rather burdensome. So citizens like you and I shouldn't be looking for such gear. So, other than hiding at home and watching our society and economy deteriorate further, what can we do? What if we change our focus away from stopping the offender by protecting victims one at a time? We have been trying to stop infection at the victim level for so long, it's actually become habit. I protect myself from infection, and you protect yourself, and so on. We need to amend that focus. Instead of fighting infection at the victim level, we could try stopping the offender long before it gets near potential victims, much like isolation rooms protect medical personnel who may be actually quite some distance from the glass walls. By moving the capable guardian closer to the source of the virus's current host, we might be able to curtail it more effectively. In the case of an isolation room, many people can come into contact with a person and still be protected by one isolation room. In other words, we citizens should wear masks in order to protect others from infection, rather than in order to protect ourselves from infection. As a side benefit, if everyone wears masks, the infection rate should decline because the virus is less able to reach and infect anyone. By changing that focus, we can now downgrade the level of protection needed by the masks. A simple cloth mask can suffice to guard others from infection, as our breath will be contained and doesn't have a chance to float through the air or onto another person or land on surfaces to lay in wait for an unwitting host to pick it up. Granted, some breath will get through a cloth mask, but masks can go a long way towards protecting us all. All individuals should wear a mask when they leave their homes, as we now know that some individuals could be contagious and transmit the virus when not showing symptoms of their own. Mask wearing by infected or potentially infected individuals is by no means new. The posting of boxes of lightweight surgical masks by the doors of hospitals and doctors' offices with directions to don one if experiencing symptoms is certainly not designed to protect the individuals wearing the masks. The hope is to protect the others in the waiting room as well as those employed by the medical facility. It has also been the custom in many Asian countries to wear masks when one is not feeling well in order to protect others. Unfortunately, in the coronavirus situation, mask wearing by those who have symptoms is not enough. In our example with 4 individuals in the crowd, only one is coughing and could be easily identified as an infected person. However, one is a silent carrier who does not exhibit symptoms, but whose breath still contains the virus. He appears identical to the others, so most individuals would not know to avoid him, don protective gear around him, or engage in other self-protective measures. This illustrates that we must engage in self-protective measures such as proper hygiene with everyone we encounter, as we cannot tell if they are silent carriers of the virus. But it also illustrates that we all need to wear masks. If everyone dons a mask, the likelihood of infecting others drops, and we do not need to rely on whether individuals are exhibiting symptoms. The situation is dire. We need to act. There are simple models on the internet that require little sewing and supplies. One is so easy it can be made by anyone with access to a handkerchief or a piece of fabric about that size and 2 rubber bands or even 2 pieces of yarn or string. While we shouldn't be taking the precious N95 filters that are needed for those in the medical facilities and on the front lines, we can certainly use these cloth masks, just like the simple, flimsy surgical masks that are posted in the doctor's offices at the door for us to use when we're experiencing symptoms. We can do this. I can protect myself by protecting everyone else, and they can do the same. Stay strong, stay well, and nowadays, stay home or apart.